Hi everyone, Heather here with PersephoneReturns.com, and I am back with your weekly forecast from Monday, May 7th, all the way through to Sunday, May 13th of 2018. And this week is going to be a little bit different than the following week. It's almost the exact opposite of the week that we just had, where things were quite calm. There wasn't a lot going on in the skies, whereas this coming week, there's a lot of interesting, difficult, and chaotic energy going on. We start off the week with Mercury coming into a square with Pluto, which, is really good for very focused mental energy, right? It's really good for getting to the bottom of things, for finding the truth, for having communications that are very intimate and deep and authentic, right? And talking about the truth. And a lot of secrets can be revealed throughout this time period. So, it's going to be bringing up a lot of stuff up to the surface for us to discuss, to talk about, to look at, to analyze, and to surrender and let go of. And so it's kind of an intense energy when it comes to communication. You might find that people are not really looking for small talk or, chit chat or anything like that. People are looking for deep intimacy and conversation, and people might be a lot less talkative at the beginning of this week than they normally are, because when you have Mercury square Pluto, what's said is what needs to be said, right? Mercury and Pluto together are very direct and very focused in the way that they communicate. It's not about communicating just for the sake of hearing yourself talk. It's about communicating deeper ideas. And this also lends for power struggles that come up in terms of communication, or, in your day-to-day thought processes, you might be more aware of these types of things. It also can make people a little bit short-tempered or a little bit more defensive or more sensitive to betrayal. And so you might have people sort of reacting in terms of their language, very on the defense, right? So they're going to be very reactionary, more so than they normally are. So this could bring disputes and power struggles through communication just because of that. But Mercury and Pluto do tend to do well together. If you look at the mythology, Pluto is Hades, and Mercury, or Hermes, was the messenger that was able to go between worlds and deliver the message to Hades, to sort of negotiate so he could let Persephone, who was, stuck in the underworld, up to the surface for at least a few months a year. And so the only god that was able to traverse between the two worlds was Mercury. And so Mercury has a relationship with Pluto. So Mercury and Pluto, they do well together, but when they're in a challenging aspect, it can be a little too focused, a little too obsessive. And so you might find people sort of obsessing over different ideas, different thoughts. You might find your thoughts becoming more focused and a little bit more concentrated and intense. And so that's sort of what's going on Monday. The other thing that's happening on Monday that's a little interesting is that Venus is squaring Neptune, and Venus-Neptune aspects are very, very difficult for relationships when they are challenging aspects, because like always, when you have Neptune involved, you're wearing the rose-colored glasses, and so people are not going to be seeing the other people in their lives quite as clearly as they normally do. So your relationships might feel very dreamlike and idealistic and fantastical and all of that, but they're not necessarily going to be that in reality. So there is potential to see someone one way, and then, a couple days later, once that sort of veil drops, to go through this moment of disillusionment where you're like, wow, this person is not who I thought they were. The situation is not what I thought it was. And so this is a really great, really creative, really dreamy energy. And it's really good for creative types. It's really good for motivating, creative projects, especially deeply creative projects where you're creating from a place of like an emotional connection or some sort of spiritual sort of drive to create something. It's really good for, cultivating a deep, compassionate connection in relationships, but it's not very good for seeing people very clearly. And so I would just say at the beginning of this week, this is not a good time to sign contracts or make deals with people. I would wait, a couple more days for that, just because you're not gonna see what's going on very clearly. And even with that heightening and that sharpness of the mind, that's going to make you a little bit more perceptive and a little bit able to read between the lines when it comes to Mercury and Pluto. When it comes to the people that you love and that you care about the most, you're not going to be seeing them very clearly. Also, finances, you might not see very clearly, or things like contracts, right, where it's a negotiation between two parties. It might not turn out the way that you think it will, and you might have an idealized version of the way things are going in your head, and it's just not going to be that way. So I would just say that the rose-colored glasses are going to be on. You're going to be seeing what you want to see in relationships at the beginning of this week, especially for those who have a really strong connection to this energy. So people who have, sun, moon, and rising in Gemini, or in Pisces, or even your Venus in Gemini or Pisces, I would say that would be, the people that really need to stay on alert, right? But there is some really good energy coming up at the beginning of the week too that sort of counteracts and balances out the difficulties from these transits that I just mentioned. We have Jupiter, which is retrograding in the sign of Scorpio, and it's going to be coming into an opposition with the Sun in Taurus. And Jupiter is actually at its perigee, so that means that Jupiter is at its closest point to the Earth right now as it's in opposition to the Sun. So this is going to be a beautiful sight in the sky to see, because the Earth is going to be right between the Sun and Jupiter, and so Jupiter will actually be rising right at sunset on the eastern horizon, and it'll be the brightest star in the sky at that time. So it's going to be very strong and very bright at the beginning of this week, right at sunrise. And traditionally this is considered a really good omen, and so even though there's a little bit of turbulent astrology going on at the beginning of this week, I would say that on a global sphere, at least at the beginning of this week, there's some positivity that could come out of this. So especially on Tuesday, because Tuesday is when we're going to have that opposition between the Sun and Jupiter. The downfall of the Sun and Jupiter is that people might expect too much of themselves or of other people. They might be a little too driven towards success or be unrealistic in their expectations. And so that's something that you kind of need to be aware of. This is also going to highlight a lot of those Jupiter and Scorpio themes. So highlighting and bringing up to the surface themes of sex, death, power struggles, those types of things, debt to other people's money, joint finances, that type of thing too. And on a global sphere, we saw as soon as Jupiter went into Scorpio, the Me Too thing, and a lot of people coming out and speaking out about sexual abuse, especially when it comes to people in positions of power, right? That was almost like clockwork. And I actually spoke to Robert Phoenix in an interview about this just before Jupiter went into Scorpio on Astrology's channel, and we were talking about this exact thing happening, and then boom, as soon as Jupiter went into Scorpio, like clockwork, it started to happen. So we might see more revelations coming up to the surface during this time. When Jupiter's in retrograde, though, on an individual level, it's more about expanding on our inner world. So we're going to be looking at issues of power, abuse of power, integrity, looking at our own deeper morals, values, and truth, and how that relates to what we do out in the world. And so this is a time to reflect on our inner philosophies, on our belief systems, and whether or not we show up in alignment with those belief systems, philosophies, moral values, ethics, whatever it is, and our religious beliefs, those types of things. So are we showing up in a way that's true to our values and true to our belief systems? And that's what that's going to be highlighting. So it's a reflective time when Jupiter's in retrograde and the Sun shines its light on it, right? And so there's going to be a push and pull between how you are in the world and what your belief systems are. And that's going to be highlighted, especially for people who have Taurus, have Sun, Moon, and Rising in Taurus or in Scorpio around 18 degrees, and also people who have Sun, Moon, or Rising in Aquarius or in Leo, again, around 18 degrees. So I would say anywhere from 16 to 20 degrees are going to be feeling this the most. Okay, so that's what's going on at the beginning of this week, and then it gets even crazier. So let's get into that. At the end of this week, we have a couple different things going on here that are very interesting. So we have Mercury coming into its final square with Mars. Mercury came into square with Mars 3 times this year. One time at the end of February, I think it was on February 28th. The second time was while Mercury was in retrograde, and this is the third and final time, the resolution point. So thinking back to the conflicts in terms of communication, in terms of arguments and disputes, and sort of harsh language being used, right? Speaking before thinking, right? Just speaking impulsively and just saying whatever's on your mind, and then having to go back when Mercury was in retrograde and rethink that, maybe apologize, or maybe you had the repercussions of what it is that you actually did during that time come back around and hit you during that retrograde season, right? And so this is sort of the resolution point where we've learned the lessons. We've had to go back and redo and maybe apologize for what we said, or deal with it in one way or another. And then as we're coming to this final pass, this is the resolution point of this transit, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to bring up tensions. If there are if there's anything that needs to be said in the areas of life that are being affected, which we'll get into a little bit in the forecast for all 12 signs, then now is when you're going to be saying them, and now is when you're going to be hearing them come out of other people's mouths. And it might be a little blunt, it might be abrasive, it might not be as tactful as we might hope or want. But, whatever needs to be said, whatever needs to come out to the open in terms of our language, that's going to happen. So our thoughts, our ideas, the communications, the things we've been holding in. And this could bring up arguments and disputes this weekend. What is also happening is that we have Uranus at the very end degrees of Aries. And so on Sunday, Uranus is at 29 degrees Aries. It's just about to shift into Taurus on Tuesday of the following week. So on the 15th, and more crazy energies going on next week as well. We have like the new moon in Taurus, and then we have literally Uranus moving into Taurus at the exact, same day. And right after that, we're actually going to have Mars squaring Uranus the following day. So it's going to be sort of a turbulent period at the beginning of the following week as well. But this really highlights this weekend on Sunday the 13th in particular, but really Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you're going to be feeling this for the next few days, especially with Mercury conjunct Uranus. This highlights the need to wrap up all of the Uranus changes in the sign of Aries. We'll have only one more chance to do so when Uranus goes into retrograde and hits these points again. And so, this is when we're tying up the loose ends. We're making the final changes. If there were areas in our lives represented by Aries in our birth charts that we needed to make changes and we haven't done so yet, now is the time when that's going to start to happen, and we're going to have a major push. You're going to be very aware. This can also bring brilliant flashes of insight, downloads. This is like a conjunction that's aligned with like awakening and with heightening of in the intellectual mind, of seeing things from an outsider's perspective, of seeing things in ways that are more innovative, more exciting. And so you're going to be thinking about things, especially if you have anything at the 29th degree of Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer. You're going to be feeling this the most, and it's going to be a little bit more strenuous and a little bit more overt. It's going to challenge you to actually do something, create something, to change something with this square that's going to be going on, or with this conjunction or opposition, depending on what sign. And we'll get into that. And so this is the final chance to make those changes, and that's being highlighted. So now we have to push forward with something if there's anything left that we need to push forward with. And it might come back around later this year, at the end of this year, when Uranus goes retrograde and hits these points again. And then, we'll have the resolution point of it at the beginning of 2019. But this is it's the anaretic degree. It's a little volatile. So you might see a lot of unexpected communications, unexpected news articles, unexpected revelations that come up in your own life and in the global sphere, especially into this weekend and the beginning of next week. It's going to be quite interesting. So it's not the easiest energy, but it is good energy for changing something and for making those last minute changes, for wrapping things up in the area of Uranus and Aries. And Mercury is going to make sure that you're very much aware on an intellectual level of the changes that need to be made. This is also an energy that lends to nervous tension. It's associated, in the birth chart with things like convulsions and tremors and seizures and all sorts of stuff. That's not really what this is going to bring on a global scale, obviously, but it could bring a shake-up energy, right? It could shake things up in terms of our social norms, in terms of our society, the structure of our society. And it could just highlight where things are already being shaken up, but we're not really paying attention to it, right? And so that's kind of an interesting thing that could go on as well. We also, in my last interview with Robert Phoenix on Uranus and Taurus that I posted, I think like 2 weeks ago, if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it. Lots of brilliant information. I'm actually going to be doing my own separate video about the global implications and the individual implications of Uranus and Taurus and what I see coming for the next 8 years. Probably later next week, I'm going to be doing that. And that's going to be the intro to my Uranus and Taurus talks, where I'm going to be interviewing a lot of interesting people that are at the cutting edge of the innovations that are going to be pushing forward and moving forward during the Uranus and Taurus transit over these next 8 years, which will have to do with a lot of things that are associated with Taurus, right? So things like the economy and finances. So people who are at the cutting edge of the innovations there, maybe with cryptocurrencies, or people who are astrologers that are able to predict like market trends and things like that. I also am going to be bringing on a lot of healers, because there are going to be changes changes and new innovations in health and healing. And the healers I'm bringing on are people that are doing things that are innovative and different, that are outside of the norm, outside of the tradition, or they're merging the traditional forms of medicine through plant medicine, nutrition, herbalism, those types of things, homeopathy, with, new innovative techniques. And so I'm going to be interviewing a few people on that spectrum as well. And then also, new innovations with the way that we grow our food, right? Because Taurus is food, and the way that we deal with Mother Nature, the way that we connect with Mother Nature, with the earth, and those types of things. So I'm going to be, interviewing hopefully a few different innovators in that respect who are doing things like restorative agriculture, permaculture, biodynamic farming, those types of things as well. And so, and I'm going to be talking about planting by the lunar cycles and, the planetary cycles and all those types of things for those who are interested in that. And yeah, there's so many different things. I have so many ideas and so many people lined up. So anyway, if you're interested in that, stay tuned. You subscribe to my channel because that's where you're going to be getting that information. You'll get the notifications when those interviews start to come up. And, but yeah, so that's what's going on this week on a more general sort of overall big picture scale. And so now I'm going to get into your readings by sign. And so as always, these are very general readings for each of the signs. They don't account for all of your personal planets, but you can still get a lot of good information about what's coming up for you this week. I would always recommend that you listen to your rising sign first if you know that. So in order to acquire your rising sign, you need to have an exact birth time, and you can go to astro.com and you can type in your information, and that'll pull up your rising sign and all of your planetary placements. You can also listen for your sun sign. That's going to be accurate as well. And then your moon sign too. Sometimes people like to listen to that. It gives you sort of a more internalized variation of the predictions and the forecast that I'm giving you, but that's still good to listen to. So you'll get a bigger picture if you listen to all three. And yeah, so let's get started. All right, and so for Aries and Aries rising, I'm going to focus a lot on the end degrees of Uranus and what might be coming there. But I'm going to talk a little bit about everything that's going on this week, as much as I can in the limited time frame that I would like to keep this within, because there's so much going on this week, you guys, so much. But for Aries and Aries rising, you guys are going to have a lot of action going on with this Mercury square to Mars, and this Mercury square to Pluto, which are both in the side of Capricorn. And so there might be power struggles and issues involving people in positions of power and authority in terms of your work, your public reputation, and what it is that you're doing out in the world. And there might be a conflict and a need to rebel and change something in order to empower yourself to have more control over your work environment and your day-to-day experience when it comes to your career goals and plans. There's also going to be sort of a need to wrap things up. There have been a lot of changes going on for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising people over these past 8 years, especially during the years when your, planetary placements were triggered by Uranus. And so you've gone through massive changes in all areas of your life, most likely, especially if you're an Aries rising or Sun sign. And so now this is highlighting not only all of the changes that you've made, but what you still need to do to sort of wrap up and make those final changes. If there are changes that you need to make because you feel frustrated in certain areas of your life, but you've been avoiding doing so, now's the time where that's going to come up to the forefront of your consciousness. You're going to have these big, grand insights and impulses and ideas, and you might feel like you can no longer stand to continue on in the same way that you've been going. And so this is a time when there are going to be changes that will be occurring for you. And so it's going to highlight the need to wrap things up and to make these final changes before Uranus moves into the sign of Taurus fully and completely. And you're going to have a few months to do so, but you're going to have to initiate that action, sometime very soon, right? Because Uranus moves into Taurus next week. And so whatever needs to change, whatever needs to be initiated in that area, the frustrations, the innovations, the insight, that's all going to come through this week. Also for you at the beginning of this week, I should backtrack to that because that was more at the end of this week, but you're really going to be feeling that all week long. Uranus is at the end degrees already. So this is a wrapping up, and it's going to be triggered by Mercury as we come into this weekend. But you're having Venus, which is in Gemini right now. So that's in the third house for you. That's actually really nice for having really balanced, really beautiful communication and connections with other people in your day-to-day experience. and to be able to communicate more artistically, more creatively, more fluently, to articulate your thoughts in a way that it's just very poetic and very beautiful, and people are more easily able to accept and receive the information that you're putting out there when you have Venus transiting the third house. But there is potential for, miscommunication. There's potential for not seeing things clearly in terms of your communications with other people, especially in relationships this week. And so you might think that things are one way, or that somebody means things one way, and that's not exactly what they meant. And so you might end up either feeling deceived or actually being deceived by somebody else, intentionally or unintentionally, right? Because you heard or you saw or you understood things in the way that you wanted to understand them, based on your own ideals and what you value and what you decided was going to be the right way. And so, because you have a more idealistic vantage point in terms of your interpretation of information right now, especially at the beginning of this week, you might get let down or disappointed, or you might feel like you're deceived when the veil drops and when we move forward with things. The other thing that's going on for you that's actually quite nice is that you do have the Sun in Taurus in opposition with Jupiter. And so this is going to highlight your finances. It's going to highlight anything that needs to be cleaned up in terms of power struggles in your finances, debt, taxes, inheritance, other people's money, those types of things can come to the forefront. This is also going to enhance and highlight deep intimacy, in terms of your relationships, your connections. And it's going to bring out the things that you fear up to the surface so you can look at them, but you're going to realize that these things are not as scary as you thought that they were. And this is a process that's been going on for you since Jupiter went into Scorpio last year, but it's being highlighted right now in a big way. And a lot of that is, fears that are tied to your resources and your ability to create resources for yourself. And so, right now there's a lot of focus on resources. And so this is going to highlight where you've given your power away, and it's going to help you to more easily see things and to clear things up in that way. It also indicates that you might have unrealistic expectations for yourself when it comes to your ability to create resources and save money this week. And so you need to, make sure that you're being realistic in your expectations, and you realize that you're only human and you can't live up to all these ideals and standards that you have for yourself all of the time. All right. And for Taurus rising, so there's going to be a lot of energy this week going on in a couple different areas. So first and foremost, at the beginning of this week, we do have Venus, which is in your second house in the sign of Gemini, coming into this this tight square with Neptune and Pisces in your 11th house. And so this could bring illusion, disillusionment, sort of fantastical energy to your finances and your friendships, right? Maybe there's some sort of area where you feel deceived when it comes to your finances, or when you lent money to your friends or to a charitable cause or to groups of people, and you thought it was going to go to one thing and it didn't actually go there. These types of issues can come up for you this week. I wouldn't lend money to anyone this week if you can avoid it. I wouldn't even necessarily give money, like donate it. I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't do something altruistic, but it just might not go in the way that you think that it will. So there could be some sort of miscommunication, some sort of disillusionment when it comes to your finances, your financial situation. This is not a good week for spending on big purchases or anything like that for you, if you can avoid it, because this is just an area where you're not seeing things quite as clearly as you normally do, and you're not thinking practically in terms of your resources. You're thinking more in ideals and in fantasies, and so you might have this fantasy about how things are going to turn out, and it just probably won't turn out exactly that way. The other thing that you have going on this week is that Mercury is going to be coming into a square with Pluto at the beginning of the week, and that's going to be squaring Pluto in your 9th house. So it's looking at, it's going deep, right? Because this is Mercury in your 12th house, and the 12th house has to do with spirituality and spiritual exploration. It has to do with your spiritual beliefs and what you understand beyond this realm, beyond, this reality. And it's going to be in square with Pluto in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of higher education, learning through experience, but it's also the house of your beliefs. And in Pluto, it's your deep-seated beliefs about, God, the universe, the world around you, the way that you give context and meaning to this reality. And so there could be some sort of challenge going on there. There could be some new information that comes in that challenges your belief systems, that challenges the structures and causes you to have to sort of transform the way you think about the world around you in one way or another. There's also going to be Mercury coming into a square with Mars in that area, and then it's going to come into a conjunction with Uranus. And so first off, this is in the 12th house of hidden enemies, so there could be somebody who's working against you and it sort of comes up to the surface a little chaotically. This could also indicate a major change that needs to happen in terms of your internal world, your spiritual belief systems, your spiritual practices, and that's going to come up to the forefront of the surface. There could be challenges and difficulties with travel plans, especially vacation plans and things like that that come up, so I wouldn't necessarily book anything or plan anything this week if that's something that you're interested in doing. Or there could be power struggles and challenges with teachers and people who are in positions of authority who sort of like mentors and things like that. And these types of things could come up for you this week. There could also be miscommunications in that area. And it can be difficult for you to understand what's really going on a logical, analytical level, even with all of this tight, Pluto, Mercury energy, just because Mercury right now is hidden in your 12th house, which makes things a little bit more foggy and confusing for you if you're trying to analyze everything on a more mental, rational level. The area where things are kind of nice for you, if you do have your Taurus, sun, moon, rising at like the first, second degree of Taurus, you're probably starting to feel that chaotic Uranus energy starting. And so things are about to change, right? You have this unsettled feeling like things are about to happen, but they haven't quite happened yet. But for the most part, you do have this really beautiful energy between the sun and Jupiter happening in your first and your seventh house. And so this is merging the energy of expansion in your relationships. It's looking at your belief systems and relationships. It's highlighting all of that, and it's merging it. The ideal situation is to merge the energy of your own self-interest, what you want, need, and truly desire, with the needs of the other, and with your structures and your belief systems surrounding your relationships, your marriage partnerships, those types of things. But this is a good week for you in terms of relationships, as long as you can integrate, and not focus too heavily on one end or the other. It's not only about expanding on your relationships. It's not only about focusing on your needs and your success out in the world. You need to merge those two. So taking care of your own needs, taking care of your own success, your own energy, while also taking into account the needs of other people in your life. And good fortune for Taurus can come through relationships with other people right now. That's that during the whole time Jupiter is in Scorpio, that's a thing, but this week it's going to be highlighted a little bit more so. Okay, and then for Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for you, you have Venus in your sign coming into this interesting square here with Neptune in Pisces in your 10th house of career and public reputation. And so there could be some sort of desire to partner up with other people when it comes to your work. There could be some sort of business partnership going on, or some sort of deal that you're making with the higher ups in a company that you work for. And, these things might not work out in the way that you think that they will. You might expect some money coming to you or something along those lines with Venus in your sign, and just might not work out in the way that you planned it to. So you might not be able to see these things very clearly. This is really good for doing some sort of creative project or creative work when it comes to your career, right? So tying in some more creative projects with whatever it is that you're doing, that would be a really good utilization of this energy. Or, tying in your spirituality and your spiritual belief systems with what it is that you're doing out in the world. That's another good utilization of this energy. But there is potential for illusion, disillusionment, being deceived by somebody in a position of authority over you this week. Let's see. So there's a lot of energy also going on here in your 8th and in your 11th house with these squares between Pluto and Mars and Mercury and Uranus. And so there's a lot of chaotic, unexpected energy that can be quite challenging for you. There's a need to change something when it comes to your friends, the people that you surround yourself with, like groups, even if it's just like a group that you're part of and it's not necessarily your friend group, but it's like you're part of an organization. But there's something that needs to change, that needs to be transformed, that you need to approach in a new and innovative way that's going to be highlighted for you in that area this week. And there could be challenges from, again, people in positions of power. I think this is going to be an interesting week for Geminis in terms of power struggles and dealing with people who are in positions of power, or dealing with feelings of disempowerment that can become quite intense for you right now. It could be that you want to actually move forward with some sort of change that involves your friends or your social networks or some sort of charitable pursuit. And, you have this sense that you don't have the power to do so because of finances or debt or something along those lines, or you just might not feel like you have, that you're empowered enough, or you might feel afraid, right? So you're going to have to face your fears. You're going to have to look at the situations that are preventing you from moving forward this week. There's a lot of good energy and really great benefits that can come through your work and through your day-to-day routines this week. So that's being highlighted. But make sure you don't negate the need to sort of rest and spend time in solitude and seclusion, spending time away from the world. Spiritual exploration, those types of things are highlighted for you as well. So don't spend time being too busy because you need to merge those two energies. But a lot of benefits can come to you through your coworkers and through your work life and your day-to-day routines this week, and your work environment, your immediate environment, those areas as well are all highlighted in terms of benefits this week. For Cancer and for Cancer rising, there is a lot of energy going on in your 10th house and in your 7th house. And so there's some sort of dispute going on or power struggle. There's a lot of intensity going on in your relationships right now with this Pluto-Mars energy that's happening in your 7th house. We had that Pluto-Mars conjunction that came exact just a couple of weeks ago, and now both of these planets are squaring Mercury and Uranus in your 10th house of career and public reputation. And so there's potential here for some sort of issues, power struggles, arguments, disputes, either with your coworkers or your business partners or people that you're close to in your work life, or with your marriage partnership. And disputes could be about work and your public reputation and what it is that you're doing out in the world. And it could even involve, home and family stuff if you have some planets going on down there. But the main thing that is being disrupted is there's a need to change your ideas about work and what it is that you're doing out in the world. So there's a need to make a major change. And there's a final sort of change that needs to happen when it comes to your career and your public reputation, because this is the last chance to do it. So if there are areas there that you're feeling frustrated with, or if there are disputes that are coming up in your partnership about this area of your life with your career and with your work and what it is that you're doing out in the world, and that's a cue that you need to change something, right? There's something that needs to be changed so you can feel more liberated, more empowered, and more free in this area. And there could also be like power struggles with people in positions of authority at your work this week. And so that's a cue that you need to change something. You need to do something that's going to make you feel more empowered in your day-to-day experience. This week, though, there is a really nice energy highlighting romance and play. So you're going to get a lot of great benefits through your hobbies, your interests, the things that you love to do through play, through romance. You're going out and dancing and having fun, and going out with your friends too, because this is on the axis of the 5th and the 11th house. So it's merging these two energies, merging the things that you love to do with your connections with your friends and the people that you surround yourself with. And so finding enjoyment through that's something that you can find a lot of benefits through this week. The area where there's potential for deception is going to be in the 9th house. So, you might feel a little foggy or a little confused, or like wanting to escape with a partner, like to a foreign country or to a foreign land, or just escape from reality, doing something that's more adventurous. And so you might have this idealistic expectation of how that's going to go, and it might not go quite that way. So I would hold off on making any solid plans, even if you're having these sort of like fantasies and daydreams about going off and doing something wonderful with your partner or with a close friend. It might not work out exactly how you want it to if you initiate that right now. So just keep that in mind, and hold on to those ideas until at least the end of this week, maybe next week or something like that. And for Leo and for Leo rising, so there's a lot of energy happening for you this week in terms of your 6th house of work. And your day-to-day health routines, your day-to-day experiences, your coworkers, all of that. There could be power struggles happening in this area. And those power struggles could relate to your the changes that you're making in terms of your belief systems, or this need to escape or get away from your day-to-day routines, from the monotony, and it might feel like your work experience, what's going on in your day-to-day life, is sort of holding you captive and preventing you from making the changes and from rebelling in the way that you might want to. And so there's going to be a little bit of a struggle here between your daily routines and wanting to get out and see the world, and wanting to change something, right? Wanting to explore and expand and have adventures and learn through experience and all of that. So there's a little bit of struggle going on there. There are also issues going on in terms of your friendships, your close friendships especially. So with Venus transiting your 11th house of friendships, your relationships are probably going a little bit more smoothly, right? There's closer one-on-one connections. You feel more charismatic. People are more drawn to you. Your relationships are just kind of coming back into balance, right? But with Neptune hiding away in your 8th house, making a square to Venus, there is potential where you could feel deceived or not really be able to see things quite so clearly in relationships this week, especially your friendships and the groups of people that you spend your time with. And so be careful with your networks early on this week. Be careful that you're not only seeing what you want to see, wearing those rose-colored glasses when it comes to your friendships. And maybe don't agree to anything super crazy, at least until the end of the week. So if somebody brings up some really great plans that seem awesome, maybe think about it a little bit and then get back to them instead of just kind of jumping in and going in and doing it, because you might think that it seems like it's like the best thing to do at that time, and it seems like this beautiful, fantastical experience that you could have. It might not quite be that. And then for you, there's a lot of really good energy happening in the area of your home and your family. And so Jupiter's been benefiting your home and family situation all year. It's helping you to expand on your roots, expand on your connection to your family, expanding on your home and your property, making things better and more beautiful there. And it's highlighting areas where you've sort of hidden things away and repressed things. They need to come out to the surface to be healed and revealed. And that energy is really prevalent this weekend, this week. With Jupiter being so close to the Earth and in opposition to the Sun, which is in your 10th house of career. So there's a need to find balance between wanting to achieve out in the world and, focusing on your roots and expanding in that area and enjoying the really beautiful benefits that are going on in that area for you right now. And so finding a way to merge those two realms this week could be, highly beneficial for you. Finding time to spend more time with your family while still maintaining the status that you want to maintain to achieve success out in the world. All right. And you're about to be wrapping up some changes in terms of your belief systems and the way that you think about the world at large, and you're going to be moving into some changes in terms of your career and public reputation over these next few years. So thinking about what has changed so far over these last 8 years in terms of your beliefs about God, the universe, your philosophies, the world around you, the higher, bigger perspective on things, and what you still have to do in terms of change in that area before you can move on. And also higher education, right? Maybe you've been getting a new degree in some sort of new area or working more with technology. And so incorporating that into your career moving forward so you can have more independence, right? And you can be more connected to your values, your beliefs, and your integrity, which is part of what's going on with this opposition as well. Okay, so for Virgo and for Virgo rising, there's a lot of intensity going on in your 5th house of love, romance, of play, of children. It's, the area where you connect your hobbies, your interests, the things that you truly love to do. It's the way that you create from the heart. And so there are power struggles going on potentially in romance or with your children or, in terms of the things that you love to do. And that struggle, it's like your 8th house, which is the house of your deepest fears and insecurities, your deeply held traumas, anything that you sort of repress and keep below the surface. It's your house of obsessions. And so there could be this week an obsession with wanting to create something or wanting to connect with something that you truly love and that you're truly passionate about. But there's a blockage there, right, where you can't quite fully immerse yourself in that. Maybe you're afraid. Maybe there's some sort of power issue that is preventing you from doing that through finances, through debt, or through just power struggles in relationships or something along those lines where you're not quite able to connect with your passions and doing the things that you truly want to do this week. There is potential for you to create something and make a really powerful change in terms of, feeling more empowered and feeling like you have the capability to face your fears and to do the things that you want to do this week. So this could be a very empowering transit, but it's not going to be without struggle or without tension. So you're going to actually have to do something to create and to cultivate that empowerment that is, one of the potentials of this transit. So, moving through and changing the things that are disempowering you, that are making you feel like you're sort of held captive, like you can't actually connect with your hobbies, your interests, the things that you love. You can't connect with romance. You can't do the things that you want to do, that your heart wants you to do, because you feel disempowered in one way or another. So this is a time to think about the changes that you need to make, either paying off debts or, dealing with your deepest fears and insecurities surrounding your ability to do these things. So that way you can move forward, feeling empowered and feeling like you're capable of doing these things. Because once you look at these fears and insecurities, they're not going to be that scary. It's just that initial, having to go in there, right? And then you do have still Pisces, Neptune transiting the sign of Pisces in your 7th house, which has been going on for quite some time. And so the rose-colored glasses are already on in relationships for you right now, but you do have Venus transiting your 10th house of career and public reputation, which is bringing great benefits, which could be bringing in some extra money or something like that, or some sort of extra reward, or maybe you're like looking into some sort of business partnership, or you're just getting along better, in your work environment and with your career. Right now, Neptune in the 7th house is squaring Venus in your 10th house. So this is a time when you might not be able to see your relationships with people in positions of authority quite as clearly, or you might have some idealistic vision of some sort of partnership or contract or something like that you want to create for yourself with your work. I would recommend holding off on that, just because you might not be able to see it so clearly right now. So there could be some sort of disillusionment when it comes to your work, your career, your public reputation. This is really good for creative pursuits in that area as well. And then for you, the benefits are coming through communication this week. So open and honest and intimate communication with other people, and also through learning practical skill sets, but also through higher education and experiential learning. So those are the areas that are going to be benefiting this week. You can also be benefiting in terms of your belief systems, your religious beliefs, your spiritual values, your philosophies on life, your integrity, right? Connecting with your integrity and showing up to communicate that more authentically and more truly out in the world. All right, for Libra and for Libra rising, you guys have a lot of interesting sort of tense energy going on in your 4th house. So there could be power struggles or issues or disputes that are coming from the home or the family situation. You could be having arguments with family members. There could be difficulties with your home or with your property. And I would say that if you're in some sort of long-term relationship, if you're in a committed partnership and you live with that person, that's where probably the dispute's going to come up the most likely, just because this is in square with Mercury and Uranus, which is just Uranus is just getting, both of those, Mercury and Uranus, are just getting ready to leave your 7th house, where they've been making major drastic changes. This could have brought, brand new relationships out of the blue, changes to your current relationship and to the structure of your current relationship that you never thought were possible. It could have brought greater freedom and autonomy in your relationships. It could have brought on again, off again sorts of relationships, or relationships with unusual people. But there's some sort of lesson that's being wrapped up in this area. So you're leaving this sort of unstable area of involving relationships right now and moving into a little bit more stability in this area over the next couple of years. So but there could be some sort of struggle or dispute involving a partnership and your home, your property, or like a family situation. So maybe, your new girlfriend doesn't get along with your family, or maybe she wants to move in and you don't want her to, or something along those lines, right? There could be something like that shows up this week. All right. And then for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, the power struggles, the issues, the conflict is coming through communication and also your work environment, your coworkers, your day-to-day routines and work experience. And so for Scorpio risings, this is a time to, not just blurt out things all chaotically and impulsively. Be careful with your words, be careful with your language. Don't just say things all willy-nilly. And this could also be power struggles and disputes in communication with coworkers or people that you interact with and engage with on a day-to-day basis with your work. And so just be careful in that area. If there's anything that you really want to communicate or move forward with, I would wait a little bit until this is past, because and thinking back to what happened the last couple of times when Mars squared Mercury is going to help you to know what's coming up this time, because this is sort of the resolution point of that transit. But it's a little bit more intense because now we have Mars still in a close conjunction with Pluto, and we have Mercury coming into this conjunction with Uranus, which is also highlighting the last final changes that you need to make in terms of your daily routines, your health, your well-being, your nutrition, diet, exercise, all those types of things. So it's highlighting the final chance to make changes in this area in order to allow yourself to be more liberated, more free, more independent, and more sovereign when it comes to the way that you deal with your health, when it comes to the way that you deal with your work and what you're doing out in the world, right? You need more sovereignty, you need more freedom. And this is going to help you to feel liberated, but there are some final changes that might need to be made in this area of life for you. And then the sort of beneficial energies that are coming through have to do with the Sun and Jupiter, which are going to be in your 7th house and in your 1st house. So you can actually experience a lot of benefits at the beginning of this week through your relationships, through your partnerships, through business partnerships, through marriage, also through focusing on your own values, your own belief systems, maybe your own integrity, and aligning your integrity with the people that you connect yourself with, right? So making sure that you're connecting with people that are of high integrity or that are in alignment with your values and belief systems, especially when it comes to, you know, morality and ethics and those types of things. So making sure that you're connecting with the right people, and that these people are trustworthy, right? Because that's in the sign of Scorpio as well. Scorpio is very sensitive to betrayal and, you know, deception and those types of things. But in general, this is going to, you know, just help you to merge the energy of focusing on expanding on your own needs, your own self-interest, whatever it is that you're trying to create out in the world, and merging that energy with the needs of other people, right? So connecting with others through whatever it is that you're doing. And so integrating the opposite, integrating that Taurus energy, integrating your relationships with whatever it is that you're trying to put out there in the world right now. Okay. Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So for Sagittarius rising, there could be power struggles and difficulties when it comes to your finances this week. So it could be that you're trying to push forward with something and it's not quite working out for you in the way that you thought it was. This could affect you in terms of your ability to do the things that you love to do, to focus on your hobbies, your interests, you know, things that you want to create out in the world because you're passionate about it. This could also put a damper on romance for you this week because there's going to be a really intense need to push forward when it comes to the way that you create your resources out in the world. And so that's going to be a main focus this week. But there could be some sort of power struggle or some sort of difficulty in that area that comes up where it could involve, you know, joint finances, it could involve other people's money, or it could involve the way that you create your own resources and maybe the people withholding money from you in one way or another. But the main takeaway is that there needs to be some changes in terms of your hobbies, your interests, things that you love to do in order to allow you to feel more empowered in terms of the way that you create your resources. You could have some new exciting ideas that come at the end of this week that allow you to take things in a new direction when it comes to whatever it is that you love to do out in the world. And so, you know, you might find yourself spontaneously thinking of these really creative ideas. You could have some difficulties and challenges and changes going on if you have children or if you're an entrepreneur, changes to your business or your business structure. And there could be, you know, just unexpected opportunities for romance or communication, but there could be some sort of struggle there, right? Or something that's hampering you or preventing you from actually engaging in the way that you might want to. And then there is going to be a little bit of potential for, in terms of business partnerships or romantic partnerships, especially when it comes to relationships where, you know, you're in a partnership with somebody, but they also live with you. So like long-term relationships where you're living with the person and things like that, if that's applicable for you, there is a potential to only be seeing what you want to see at the beginning of this week. And so you could come into moments of disillusionment. This could also be disillusionment when it comes to any relationship really, but just being very careful to not only see what you want to see in your relationships this week, because you might be deceived a little bit more easily. A lot of the great benefits this week can come from turning inward, so spending time in solitude and contemplation and figuring out what you truly want, need, and desire from an internal sort of perspective, and focusing on your spirituality, focusing on your creativity, you know, spending time in meditation or focusing on dream work and those types of things can be very beneficial for you at this time, and merging that energy with your energy of your work, right? Because with the sun moving through Taurus, what's being highlighted right now is your day-to-day work routines and your day-to-day experience. The need to work hard. You're probably quite busy. And so there's a need to integrate the opposite this week, because a lot of great benefits are going to come to you through these inspirations, these downloads, these sort of divine visions that can come to you through dreams, through just spending time disconnected from everything. You're going to be able to get a lot of benefits through that experience. And so you need to integrate both energies, right? Integrate the inspirations that you get through your downtime into the work that you're doing out in the world. All right. And then for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, let's see what's going on for you. So there's a need to make some changes when it comes to your home and your family situation. Any changes that are left that need to be made are going to be made, you know, this week into next week. So paying attention to downloads, to ideas, to inspirations and frustrations that occur for you in terms of your home, your family, your property, and using those as cues to know where you need to change something. There could also be power struggles that you're experiencing very directly. So people in your family might be outright attacking you or saying bad things to you, or you might be arguing with them a little bit more. You might be a little bit more they might be a little bit more disruptive in their energy, but you might be more apt to speak very abruptly, very bluntly, and to sort of have to put your foot in your mouth, because this Mars energy and this Pluto energy in square with Mercury in your fourth house is very much having to do with you and the way that you present yourself out in the world. So you might be moving too quickly, you might be a little too focused, a little too intense, and you might say something that you don't mean out of anger, out of frustration. And so just be very careful, to think before you speak this week. The other thing that's going on is that there could be difficulties in communication with coworkers or people that you surround yourself with on a day-to-day basis, but especially coworkers. So there could be some sort of coworker relationship that isn't what you thought it was, where you end up getting deceived or let down in some sort of way. There could be some sort of work project involving communication where you have an idealistic version of how it's going to turn out in your head, and it doesn't really turn out that way for you this week. And so especially at the beginning of this week, just be careful that you're being realistic in your expectations with anything involving communication and your work. The benefits for you this week come through your friendships. And so taking time out from focusing on your children, focusing on your creative self-expression, your hobbies, your interests, and the things that you love to do, and focusing a little bit more on expanding on your social networks, going out, spending time with friends, connecting with people that have similar interests that you do, joining some sort of group. Those types of things can bring a lot of benefits. Merging your hobbies, your interests, what you love to do with your friendships. So taking your friends or going out with your friends to do something that you truly love to do, right? And showing them what you like, and that kind of thing can be very beneficial for you as well. But this is a week where a lot of really great benefits can come through focusing on your friendships and your social networks. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you have Pluto and Mars in the 12th house of hidden enemies in square with Mercury and also Uranus. That's going to come exact next week with Mars in the third house of communication. So this indicates secrets coming out and being revealed out in the open. This could be chaotic sort of circumstances that show you the true nature of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Maybe there is somebody that's working behind the scenes to sort of take you down, who's working against you, and that person is going to come out into the open a little bit more this week. It's going to be a disruptive sort of energy. And so paying very close attention to your communication, you might say something that somebody might take and twist around and take out of context and use against you. So you want to be very careful with your words this week, because you're going to be speaking a little bit more unusually or impulsively. Your words might become a little bit more eccentric. You might feel a little bit more rebellious in your speech, so you want to kind of lash out at people or say something that's going to rattle somebody else's cages just to do so, right? You're an Aquarius rising, so you're already kind of into shocking people out of complacency. This is going to make that energy a lot stronger, and people might take that and they might use it against you. So I would just be very careful and very aware of that. In terms of your speech and what it is that you're putting out into the world through communication. But the other thing too that might be a little challenging this week is that you do have Neptune transiting your second house of resources and finances. It's coming into a square with Venus in your fifth house. And so there could be some sort of idealistic variation of some sort of romance that you're coming into, or something having to do with creating balance with your family, with your children, focusing on your hobbies, your interests, your creativity, and the things that you love to do. But there could be a blockage in terms of money. Maybe you thought you had the resources and then you don't, right? Because when you have Neptune in the second house throughout that entire transit, which is lasts many, many years, money sort of slips right through your fingertips. So even though you always have it when you need it, sometimes it's not there and you're like, where did it go? And this could be one of those situations where you go to engage in something that you love to do and the money's just not there. And it's like, what just happened here? But this is a really good time for creativity and creative self-expression. So creating things in a very physical, very tangible way that are beautiful, that could be a good utilization of that energy. And a lot of great benefits can come to you through your career, through your public reputation, through the work that you're doing out in the world this week for Aquarius and Aquarius risings, and merging that energy with the energy of your home and family. Because right now with the Sun in Taurus, the focus is on your home and your family, right? So maybe taking some time to sort of work from home, or to, incorporate your home life into the work that you're doing or what it is that you're putting out into the world. But a lot of benefits can come through shifting your focus a little bit this week, through focusing on your career, your public reputation. So good things can happen in that realm for you. And then finally, for Pisces and Pisces rising, there's a lot of thoughts and ideas and communications this week that are focused on your resources. That's been going on for a few months now with Mercury transiting back and forth in the sign of Aries. And so this week is going to highlight any final changes that you need to make in terms of the way that you create resources for yourself. If you need to ask for a raise or become more independent or more sovereign in the work that you do, working more independently, those types of things, and you haven't quite done it yet or mustered up the courage, now is the time to start thinking about what you need to do moving forward and making those final changes when it comes to your finances, what you truly want and need and desire to be sovereign and independent in your resources. There could be some sort of power struggles involving money and resources with your friends. I've said this for you guys for a couple weeks now, but it's been on and off, right? And so, you know, there could be a lot of really intense energy around your friendships and your sort of social networks right now. You might be dealing with fights and disputes and difficulties and sort of chaotic, unexpected situations that come out of nowhere that you have to sort of address and deal with. And maybe you have to address and deal with them, you know, using your finances and your resources in one way or another. But, you know, friendships and stuff like that can be a little intense this week. So there could be some intense communication. Somebody might say something they don't mean, and that person might be you. So just be very aware of the language that you're using, especially coming into this weekend. With Neptune in your first house coming into a square, or with Venus in your fourth house coming into a square with Neptune in your first house, I should say, you know, Venus has been transiting your fourth house, and that's been bringing greater balance and harmony to your living situation and to your relationships with your family. And you might have some certain expectations for maybe your family members, roommates, or some sort of living situation, or, you know, property, you know, investment, or, you know, some sort of change in your property or something like that, that you want it to come through in a certain way, and it just might not come out in the way that you think that it will. You might have you might be seeing what you want to see when it comes to this situation. Like, I think it's going to turn out this way, and I can see it, and this is what it's going to be, and it's just not going to be that way. And you can also have the potential to be deceived by family members during this time as well. Not even necessarily that it's intentional. You could just, it could be deception in the sense, or like a delusion, right? Like, you think that they're going to be this way, but they're not, because you saw it. You saw what you wanted to see. So there's a miscommunication or a difficulty in that area. But it could also be intentional deception through family members, roommates, people, you know, in your place of living in that immediate system. Or even like your property manager or landlord or something. So that could just be, you know, don't trust what they say necessarily, or just allow yourself to be a little bit more grounded and to see things a little bit more realistically before you move forward with anything or agree to anything. And then for Pisces, a lot of really great benefits this week can come through travel and travel plans, also through higher education, through exploring new belief systems, new philosophies, new religious practices, finding new teachers. So this is a time when you can branch out and explore in those realms, and that can be quite beneficial for you. Merging this energy of the higher wisdom, the broader perspective, with your day-to-day learning and your day-to-day communication, your day-to-day experience is going to be the way to go this week. And so you've been focusing a lot on day-to-day communication. So emails, text messages, phone calls, commutes, you know, your immediate environment, your immediate surroundings, your neighborhood. And now it's maybe time for you to think about branching out and taking a trip or taking a new course that's a little bit more esoteric or something along those lines. But going a little bit deeper in terms of exploring your values, your morals, your beliefs, your philosophies, that sort of frame this reality and the way that you interact and engage with it. And, you know, focusing more on the bigger picture this week for Pisces and Pisces rising is going to help you to deal with the small stuff a lot more easily. In general, that's a good sort of way to think about it. But for Pisces, you kind of need to focus on the small stuff, because Pisces is sort of like big picture, like everything is connected, you know, that kind of energy, right? And so, you know, focusing on the big picture and the broader perspective this week is actually going to be quite helpful for you in order to sort of get through the little things that are going to be going on, because there's a lot of little things going on for everyone this week. And, you know, Pisces is no exception to that. And so, yeah. So that was all 12 signs. So I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you have any questions about what I just said, you can always, you know, post the comments in the comment section below. I love reading your comments and answering them. And I love when you guys post timestamps and things like that too. So thank you to all of you who have done that. And if you want to book a reading with me, you can absolutely do so at the link in the description below. I only have a few slots left before I leave for my summer travel plans. So if you want to get in for a reading with me, I highly recommend you book it now, because those slots are going to fill up quite quickly. And so yeah, and subscribe to my channel if you want to keep getting updates about the astrology each week, because I'm going to keep doing these weekly videos. I'm going to start doing other videos about major transits and different things that are going on as well. And I'll do a few interviews here and there. I'm not going to bombard you with a ton of interviews. It'll probably just be like once or twice a month maximum. But, you know, we're doing a lot of good stuff and I'm excited for it. And thank you all for being a part of this and for watching this video. And I hope you have a really wonderful week. Bye.